So now it's my great pleasure to introduce Maurice Blanks. Maurice and I know each other because he's my boss at the Art Institute. He's the chairman of the board of trustees at the Art Institute, MIA, and also happens to be a neighbor, but I didn't actually know that until a Minneapolis neighbor, until I joined the board. Maurice actually founded Blue Dot Furniture with two college classmates from Williams College in 1997. And subsequent to that, he went off to Chicago. He was a spokesperson for a style network. So I'm thinking you might be able to do some QVC for the ARF. I got a little plan for you. And then after some time in Chicago in architecture and kind of the design world, he actually went back to Blue Dot. He's currently the co-founder, of course, and the COO and president of Blue Dot Furniture. So many of you have done research in people's living rooms. Dave Morgan was talking about boxes that are in people's living rooms, or maybe they're watching on this instead of a box. Maurice is here to talk about the world of art and design, and actually about the living room of the future and what it really means to all of us that are in the world of marketing. He currently is in charge of product sourcing, design, product design, branding, marketing, and I can't imagine what else there could be for you to be in charge of there. And I know you're a global company and a lot of online sales, so I think it'll be absolutely fascinating. Again, in the spirit of what Don and John were saying about a B2B and different business models, I think you'll really find Maurice's talk fascinating. So, welcome. Here's your clicker.
Feasting on a diet of really smart data and my not. It's actually, I think it's fallen. I can see it. It's not supposed to be there. How's that? Can you hear me in back? So, as I was saying, you've been feasting all day on a rich diet of data and science and charts and people that know a lot about marketing and advertising. So think of this as sort of that lemon sorbet, kind of between the courses, just to kind of clear your palate a little bit and get ready for some more this afternoon. Because I'm an entrepreneur, I was an art major, I was an architect, so very far from a marketing or advertising expert. But I'm just going to talk about Blue Dot, which I started in '97 with two friends from college and $50,000. And we've grown it into a business that passed $100 million a few years ago, selling modern home furnishings through basically every channel. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the business and talk about some of our, what I would call experiments in marketing. There's a lot of science that we've talked about today, but this is really more of an experiment by a team of young entrepreneurs. So we give good modern. That's the tagline that we put on the front of our store in Los Angeles. And I put it up here because I think it says a few things about the business. If we kind of sort of read into that a little bit, it talks about we, which is a collaborative, which was what we started Blue Dot to be. So we never wanted it to be, we never wanted to be design stars. We never wanted to be Frank Lloyd Wright or Michael Graves. We wanted it to be about the brand and about the people. So it's called Blue Dot. It's just a simple, generic shape. Give implies putting things into the world. So one of our goals in starting Blue Dot was to get modern design into the world. And then good modern, it's modern. Modern minimal furniture for the home is really what we do. And we give good modern is a little bit of an immature double entendre that can be read a couple different ways. And so it says something about our personality, the personality of the brand and the personality of the company. So we started Blue Dot in the mid-'90s, And it was really a reaction against what we found in the modern home furnishings market at that time. So if you go back, rewind the clock back to the mid-90s, what you had was you had modern design that was mostly European. It was quite expensive. It was quite hard to get your hands on it. Once you ordered it, it took about 12 to 16 weeks to get it. And so we came out, we were furnishing our first apartments, and what we found quickly was that what we liked we couldn't afford, and what we could afford we didn't like. And I guess we were naive and maybe arrogant enough to think that we could change that we could do something better, that a coffee table did not have to cost $3,000. And we thought we knew a little bit of something about building things, so that's sort of the beginning of the company. So really there were three things that we were looking to do. We were trying to make it more affordable, so not make it IKEA, but maybe go from Armani to J. Crew. We wanted to make it more affordable. We wanted to make it more available. We wanted to make it something that you could go out and get modern design. If you left here today, in 7 days, you could have a modern piece of furniture in your home. And we wanted to make it more approachable. So approachability was really about the brand. So at the time, in the early 90s or the mid-90s, modern design sort of looked down its nose at you. You had to sort of almost prove that you were special enough to be worthy of modern design. So on those three, that's sort of I guess the three basic tenets that we started the company. And so affordability was really about designing for manufacture, but then going beyond that. So designing so that the product, the finishing, the materials, everything about the product could be affordable. You know, we saw a lot of designers at the time that were basically, they would draw something on a piece of paper and then take it to a factory and then say, can you make this? And we said, why don't you start with the idea that there are a lot of different parts to this, and then you have to think about each one of them. So what we did was we started to think about the design process as a really complicated multivariable equation. Sorry, let me just get a drink of water. And the idea was that each of the constraints that you have as a designer is a variable in that equation. And that we saw the solution of that equation as the product, which is really just a residue of solving all those variables. So once we got the idea that we realized that we could make product affordable, then the next step was to make it available. So that meant going after basically every channel. So we started as B2B, selling wholesale to retailers. We eventually realized that we weren't getting the reach in the market that we wanted, that we needed. So there were sort of two keys to that. One was opening our own retail stores, which is expensive, and really going after e-commerce. But we did both of those. We hired an e-commerce director in, I think it was 2010, and really went after e-commerce, and now that's a third of our sales. And then we started opening stores. So now we're in New York, San Francisco, LA, Austin, and we recently opened an outlet actually in Minneapolis. So now we sell B2B, B2C, to architects and designers. We sell to online retailers, bricks and mortar retailers. So we're really all through the supply, all through all channels. And we also have 97% of our product is in stock in our warehouse here in the Twin Cities. And most orders are fulfilled within 24 hours. So that doesn't sound exceptional in the world of Amazon, but if you go into the sort of, you wind back 100 years into the furniture business, especially the modern furniture business, it's still pretty unusual to have product in your home and within a week or two of ordering it. So we made it available. And then the third thing is making it approachable. And I think that was one of the biggest challenges that we had when we started the brand, was trying to figure out how we create a brand in a space that there really are no brands. So for example, if you think to yourself, can I name 3 home furnishings brands? So I'm not saying retailers, so you can't say West Elm, you can't say CB2. Home furnishings brands, so like Nike, like Samsung, products, people that are designing product and putting them into the world. Can you think of 3? Can you think of 2? Can you think of 1? So I think I've proved my point that we saw that as both as a challenge as an opportunity, but the brand was really important to us. And so we went about creating it, we think in a really careful, thoughtful way, and we saw the brand as just kind of another product, that we would design the brand as carefully as we designed a product. We were all designers, so design made sense to us, and all we had to do was reapply the sort of way we thought about design and think about our marketing and even our operations and our finance. There was an article in Fast Company a few years ago by Mark Shillem, and he talked about branding is the creation of patterns, and I think I have a slide here that sort of illustrated his point, which is that people are really sophisticated at identifying patterns, and a brand is just a type of a pattern. And if the pattern is too simple, if your brand is too simple, then people get bored, and it's monotonous, it's too predictable. But if it becomes too complex, then it's too difficult to follow, it doesn't make sense, it doesn't hold together. But I thought what really interested me about this was that it stressed the idea of being able to push the boundaries of how consistent and simple a brand could be. So we set out to create this brand, which was the opposite of what kind of high-end, snooty, modern home furnishings was in the mid-90s. So the idea was it would be humble, it would be approachable, it would be accessible, it would be simple, and it would be funny. There would be humor. So humor is a big part of what we do. We Give Good Modern obviously has a little bit of a wink in it. So humor is an important part of it. And humor is there because it's really, we wanted to have fun as the founders, and we also felt like it was an important element in disarming the consumer and bringing them closer. So in the early days, most of Blue Dot getting out in the world was through just PR. We had an interesting story. We were a new company. We were doing something that no one was really doing, and no one is still really doing it, which is designing and producing furniture in America and doing it through a variety of channels. So we got a lot of press early on, which was great. We eventually, our $50,000 eventually grew to the point where we had enough money to start buying ads in some of the shelter magazines. So we turned to some friends of ours who had left Fallon and started an agency in town called Mono. And so they helped us put together some of these ads, which were full-page ads and mostly in Dwell. So this is a really simple, minimal ad, and you probably can't read the copy, but it says, "Because it's the rocking that should put you to sleep, not the chair." So trying to convey the brand essence there. So some humor, some approachability, but also a really clean, a lot of white space, which is really hard to do when you're spending what is a large percentage of your advertising budget on a print ad, and 78% of the page is white. This was another from that campaign, which was Write the Great American Novel or Surf Porn. We actually got scolded for this one. But it's hard for us. I mean, going back to this idea of the brand as a pattern, we want to push the limit. We want to have a specific voice. And we have the opportunity to have a voice that some of our competitors can't have. CB2 can't say that. Crate & Barrel can't say that. Design Within Reach can't say that. So we have to find the edge of what we can say and what they can't say and what people will not find distasteful. Then we moved on from that campaign to another campaign that really, this is us sort of having fun and just trying to break through what we saw as the monotony and the clutter of the print ads in a lot of the publications we were in. So this is just a chair of ours, a Toro chair, floating over I think this is stock photography, and the copy just says, "OMG pretty." Similar idea here, "Seriously serious" is the tagline. So we did these ads, and I think we felt a little bit limited in the sense that the ads weren't totally articulating, what we saw as sort of our brand, kind of our brand and our brand promise and what we stood for. That it was a little two-dimensional. So we started looking at other ways to express the brand, and started to look at the web and the idea of viral marketing, trying to figure out what we could do there. This is a project that we did again with Mono called the Swap Meet. And the idea of the swap meet was, this was, I think it was about 2009, so it was a time when people didn't have a lot of money for furniture. And we wanted to, again, do something that was very consistent with the brand, but was interesting, funny, engaging. And the idea of the swap meet was that you could go to this. We built a special platform on the web for this. You could go on the web, you could find a piece of Blue Dot furniture that you wanted, and then you could upload a photograph of something that you would exchange with Blue Dot for that piece of furniture, and then you could write a description. So then we sort of got it out through a little bit of PR and mostly through social media. But the way we kind of ensured that it would live a longer life than that is we had a like button, so we had a thumbs up button. And we didn't say that if you had the most likes you would win, but it was certainly implied the more likes you had, the better the chance you had of winning the swap. So people would come on, they would post their proposed swap, and then they would go on their social media, and they would tweet, and they would put it on Facebook, and they would get, through all of their social media channels, they would say to their friends, go to this, here's the URL, go to the website, like my swap so I can get this sofa. So there was kind of, we basically relied on the audience then to kind of set the fire and keep the fire spreading. And it was a lot of fun. There were a lot of really, we basically stressed creativity over value. So if you had something that was very creative, it would get higher marks, and there was a higher likelihood that you would get the swap than if it was just simply valuable. So there was a range of, a very wide range. I think we had about 3,000 offers, and I think we accepted about 40. And sometimes you could also comment on these. So their friends could go on and they could comment on their swaps underneath it. And we could also comment. So in some cases we would negotiate. If we thought somebody came along and said, well, I did this sketch of my sister and I want a sectional sofa, we would say, hey, that's a great sketch, but how about a table lamp? So we'd basically try to bring down the cost of the swap. So some of the examples where there was somebody local who'd made a motorcycle, a full-scale motorcycle, out of 9,000 popsicle sticks. So that person actually did get a sectional sofa. We got a share of Enron stock. We got someone's mother to call us every week. I think which was a diversion because they didn't want their mother calling them anymore every week. And I thought one of the most creative and most sort of obscure and abstract proposed swaps was a reference to the movie Breakfast Club. So if you remember, Emilio Estevez's character in the movie is in detention because there was a nerd in the locker room and he taped his buns together. And so the proposed swap was, I'll tape my buns together. So we awarded that swap. So again, high creativity, low value. So it was a really great campaign. It was very consistent with our brand because it was a way for us to kind of get furniture out into the market, to get our design out into the world. And this was maybe more of an inside angle for us, was when we first started the company, a lot of our early marketing was all done by swap. So when Mono first started working with us on the ads, they had to furnish their new office with furniture, so we swapped furniture. So swapping furniture for product or for services was a real part of the company. So that was quite successful. We also did another campaign that we called the Real Good Experiment. So this was to celebrate the first anniversary of our store in New York. And it was kind of complicated, but bear with me. So just what we basically did is we dropped 25 chairs on the streets of New York and wanted to see what would happen to them. And that idea came about from something that was, again, consistent with Blue Dot, which was the idea of getting design out into the world and sort of getting it to everyday people. And it intersected with something that we thought was distinctly New York, which was curb mining, right? Which is people in New York bring something down, they have a piece of furniture they don't want, they bring it down, they put it on the curb. 30 minutes later, it's gone and it's being reused somewhere else. So we thought there was a nice intersection between things that we thought were Blue Dot and things that we thought were New York. So what we did was we got some geeks in New York to create this little, it was basically a tilt switch with a battery and a cell phone. So we could track them through GPS. When you lifted the chair up, the tilt switch activated the GPS and it began transmitting a signal. So we were a little nervous about this actually though, because this was post 9/11 New York. And we thought, you've got all these chairs sitting around with cell phones and battery packs on the bottom. So we were a little nervous, but luckily there were no events. As soon as the chair was activated, it started tweeting its location, and then there was a link to a URL that had a Google map that showed where the chairs were once they were picked up and they were moving. So we actually teased people early on with Twitter saying, I'm in a location that is sort of like this, because we knew that we would have fans that would go out and they would try to find the chairs really quickly. But we really wanted people that had nothing to do with Blue Dot, complete strangers. So we kept it a little bit secretive. So once the people picked up the chairs, we could track the chair back to their home, essentially to their location where they took the chair. And then we followed up with a camera crew that then went to their house or their apartment, knocked on their door, and interviewed them to find out who they were, what their life was like, and why they wanted this chair. And I think it was about 5 of the locations. We also had cameras that were like this, that were surveilling the chair so that we could see people coming, looking at the chair, and then leaving, sitting in the chair and smoking, whatever was happening. So that was all documented through the surveillance and then through the interviews into an 8-minute movie that I won't show here today, but it's actually quite a good, I have to say it, because I had nothing to do with the creation of it, but it's quite a good movie. But it follows the chairs, it shows the behind the scenes, it shows the people that took it, and then interviews them in their apartments. And so what was really interesting about all this, kind of after the fact of doing some of these, we looked back and we thought, we've really kind of gotten into the content business, right? I mean, all these things are about making content. And I think it was actually Larry Kramer, who's the publisher of USA Today. It was at a Magid conference. He said that all companies in today's world are now media companies. And I thought, when he said that and I thought of these, I thought, that's exactly right. So we've sort of gone from PR-based marketing to some ads. We're still doing ads, and now we're doing this. And now I think the thing that's ringing around in our head today is this sort of expression that you've probably heard a lot, that is customer service is the new marketing. What does that mean in the future? What does artificial intelligence mean in the future? If you say to Siri, I want to buy a coffee table, where should I go? How do we come into Siri's, how do we advertise to Siri? Is that through customer service and social media? Is that being great in customer service so that Siri sees that and directs me towards Blue Dot? So I think there's a lot of interesting things that are out there, and we're slowly walking towards them, I guess. So that's a kind of a quick peek at Blue Dot. Thank you for listening. We have a few minutes left. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I noticed the other day when I was with kids and a friend, they were surrounded in the living room and there were 8 kids on it. Where normally they'd be watching TV. I'm guessing you're thinking about that in design. So what's coming to answer that?
In terms of the actual design of the living room, yeah. I think everybody just stays at home. No, I don't know. We get this. People ask us a lot about how does furniture change in the digital world, and I think the benefit that we have is that human bodies don't change, so that makes things a little bit easier. It's hard to be really disruptive in the furniture space. I guess I would say that. So I think most of the things that happen in home furnishings relative to digital are related to simple things like putting a USB charger on a table or putting an iPad on a refrigerator. And I guess to be honest with you, we haven't really thought through like what's the great next step on incorporating digital into that. And in terms of the way people use furniture, I think what we've found is that it's changed a lot more in the commercial space. in the contract space. So companies like Herman Miller and Steelcase and that are selling, that have been selling office cubicles for years. So they sell their office cubicles and then they sell their executive suites. Well, now what's happening is that's all sort of been fragmented, and people like us are getting now calls from huge companies that are saying, we want to buy 1,000 of these and 2,000 of those because we want to furnish campfire areas and collaboration zones. And so I guess in the residential side, I would say it's not radically changing, and I haven't seen any great new frontier there, but certainly in the contract space. Great.